Good morning. I've got Peter Murphy here from NOAA, National Ocean. Tell me what that
National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Good morning.
Good morning. And I hear NOAA, and it's always such positive context, whether it's helping fund I think one of the vessels that helps our state police, so many things that NOAA does. But you're here to tell us about something pretty interesting that's been happening.
Yeah, no, thanks for the opportunity as well. So we're here today to talk about the Fishing for Energy project, which is a collaboration between NOAA and the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. And it's a project really to try to take retired nets or old fishing gear or ones that are actually pulled out of the ocean and dispose of them in the best way possible.
Well, this program's been going on for a while, but just recently in the news, we saw the whales and the phantom nets and all of those things. Yeah. So wonderful. But we've been working on this project for a while, haven't we?
Yeah, we have indeed. So it's been about 10 years. We're actually celebrating the 10-year anniversary this year, and you raise a really key point, just that fishing nets specifically have threats that are challenges. They can entangle animals, so non-target species, things that the nets weren't originally designed to catch, whales, that sort of thing. We've actually seen situations where whales in Hawaii have been trailed along gears from as far away as Alaska. All the way to and all the way there, and so that happens. But also smaller animals might not be so lucky, and so it's a really important issue to try to get it out of the environment and dispose of it.
Well, exactly. So we discover the ones that we rescue. We don't know all that we've lost.
Absolutely correct. Yes, That's a very good way to put it.
But what's happening today in Garibaldi?
Yes, exactly. So today we're celebrating a bin. So the way this project or program works is that there are individual bins where fishermen can bring retired or old fishing nets that are then disposed of. So they're either recycled, so parts of them that can be recycled are. Other parts go to generate power. And so that way it's sustainable. So the things that aren't going into the landfill. So today we're celebrating this port here in Garibaldi and the great work that's happening there with this program.
So are our fishermen, they've become pretty involved in this? How does it work?
Yeah, so the fishermen bring the gear and they actually place it in these bins, Fishing for Energy bins that they're called. That's the name of the program, of course. So they have them at ports around the country, over 50 different ports or 50 different bins rather around the country, where fishermen can say, hey, I have this net. I'm going to retire it or get rid of it, and they're able to place it there. So it's only for fishing gear. They actually work with the port, the harbor master, whoever it is, to make sure that people don't start throwing other garbage in there. That can happen sometimes, but that way they know that hey, this is stuff that we can use to either recycle or use to generate energy. So the fishermen, then they sign up, and it's been great. We've seen a lot of great partnerships around the country with fishermen really getting engaged and also getting more engaged with the issue beyond just disposing of their gear based on their interaction with this program.
Well, and Peter, not only for our marine life and habitat, but some of that abandoned gear could be damaging to vessels too.
Absolutely. It's a really good point. Some of the key impacts we have are entanglement, as we mentioned earlier, so non-target species, then also ghost fishing, so animals that the gear was designed to catch, but getting caught for much longer. So as an example, in Alaska, we did a project where crab pots were lost 7 years after they were lost. They were still catching crab. So it's amazing how long this stuff can last. But then lastly, and not least, but is human health and safety. So hazardous navigation. We actually had a NOAA research vessel that was out in the open Pacific, got their prop tangled in a fishing net and lost power. Now it was a nice day, so they were able to deploy divers, no problem. But any of us who've been out on the water know you lose power on a bad day and things can go sideways very quickly.
Absolutely.
So
I've been out on our ocean.
Exactly. I imagine you have. Yeah.
Yeah, we're kind of lucky here.
Exactly. Absolutely. Looking out today. Why wouldn't you?
In fact, where did you travel over from, Peter?
So I came down from our Seattle office and got to enjoy the coast on the way down, which is beautiful. So yeah. And so great.
Now, you're going to be meeting with some people there this morning in Garibaldi, and now, I read it's over this last 10 years, it's collected like 4 million pounds.
That's exactly right. Yeah, so 4 million total pounds have been collected and then diverted from landfills, both for recycling or energy creation for local communities, and that's across the country. And it's been great to see the program grow and build these partnership and relationships, and as well as achieve all of this diversion out of the landfill.
But just our port of Garibaldi, 240,000 pounds.
Yeah, it's a great
Is it mostly our commercial fishermen that take advantage of it?
It's typically commercial, just based on the gear,
Sure.
but different ports have that set up differently. But yes, it's mostly commercial, just based on the amount of weight that they go through in terms of the amount of gear that they have to cycle, just because, they have to replace nets every once in a while. Or sometimes also fishermen will find net. They'll actually bring up net that they find out in the ocean, old lost nets, and
Sure.
they're able to dispose of those too.
Well, good for you, fishermen. Thank you.
Exactly.
And it took a couple of interested partners to make this happen, didn't it?
Yeah, certainly. So there's in any given port, the actual port itself, they need to work together to figure out, okay, where are we going to place this bin? How's that going to work? And we have kind of a champion in each port. And so here in Garibaldi, that's been great. They've done a great job. But then also you have NIFWIF, who works to supply the bin and place it. And then also Covanta and Schnitzer Steel. So Covanta is the energy production company. That's in Brooks, Oregon, just a little bit east of here. So we're going over there tomorrow as well to check out that. And then also Schnitzer, they handle some of the recycling aspects. So it's really a collaboration
Sure.
of public-private partnership, which really is really important for leveraging and getting the most bang for the buck. We're trying to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars as well.
Well, and NOAA is pretty good at these public-private partnerships and public, because I think of how our sheriff's office, no, it wasn't the sheriff's office, it was OSP, but they're located out there. That partnership with our Marine, it just...
No, it's great. And that's one of the things that I think NOAA, we have the advantage of doing a lot of diverse things, but they also all, of course, center around the ocean and atmosphere. But, mainly I work on the ocean part, but absolutely those partnerships with local groups, because something that we think about for our issue specifically for marine debris, we're just one player in a big community. And there's a lot of people doing innovative and interesting work on the issue. So it's really important to make those connections, because a lot of people have marine debris as kind of their second job. They have their first job and then they also work on this. And that's so important because they're the ones out there on the front line so often. So we want to be able to support them in that.
Well, the other big one we hear so much now is plastic.
Yes.
And I know many of our cities and the county moving towards changing how we use, what kind of plastic we use.
Absolutely. So one of the things we say is removal. We're not going to be able to remove or clean up our way out of this problem. It would be kind of like trying to empty a bathtub with the faucet still on.
Yeah.
So we need to stop the influx, turn the tap off, stop things getting in the water. And plastic is a key part of that, because most of the fishing gear is now made of plastic. It makes sense. It lasts longer. It's hardier than the organic materials, but that makes it doesn't break down when it gets in the environment. But also then you have consumer plastics, everyday things that get out there too.
And I heard about the micro, those little tiny pieces that
Absolutely.
are just everywhere now.
Yeah, so when plastic gets out in the environment, it just breaks apart into smaller and smaller pieces. It doesn't decompose the way something organic would. And so things like, a water bottle eventually is going to break into a tiny piece of plastic we call microplastics. But then there's also things like, they call them nurdles. It's kind of a fun word. It's the pre-production pellets. So when you make something out of plastic, you start with these things. They're the feedstock. You melt them down, then you make something out of plastic. If those get spilled, they're already tiny. They're little beads. And then, last but not least, there's a lot of research coming out now around microfibers. So fleece, that sort of thing. We all love our fleece.
Sure.
We're here in the Pacific Northwest. But when you put that through a washing machine, that fleece that gets out there can go right out into the ocean. And we're still working there's still work going on to figure out what kind of impact that can have. It just shows how it can go from big fishing nets all the way down to the fleece that comes off your North Face or your Patagonia. I'm not here to endorse any brands. Just whatever's your pleasure.
Whatever's your pleasure. Peter, let's talk a little bit about some of the things that NOAA does, because I think from weather, getting the weather report to whatever. Absolutely,
yeah. So NOAA does a lot of different elements. So there's obviously, most people when they first think of NOAA, they think of the weather. And a very important thing it is too. So they also, National Marine Fisheries Service, they work to research and manage federal fisheries. So many fishermen on the coast are well aware of National Marine Fisheries Service. So that's another part. The part of NOAA that I work in is National Ocean Service. It's a general name, but what we do specifically, I work out of a group that does work on oil spills. So that's one of our sister groups. And then my group does marine debris, so garbage in the ocean. So it's a broad range. The good thing, though, is within NOAA, too, you're only a phone call away from someone who has expertise in a very specific thing. So I personally end up calling oceanographers who do research out in the Pacific, not on marine debris, but to understand, okay, if I was going to drop marine debris here, where might it go and how long it would take to get there? So those sort of questions, you find that expertise all over the organization, which is great.
So when, for instance, the tsunami in March of 11,
exactly,
the tracking of that is still going on.
Absolutely. So yeah, many, I'm sure your listeners experienced that with what we saw, and starting in 2012 into 13, significant amounts of uptick of debris on the Oregon coast, but also Washington, California, Alaska, Hawaii. And so, yeah, we're still continuing to track that. The pulse, if you will, has subsided. It's fading kind of into what unfortunately is an everyday accumulation of debris. But by the same token, that's a good example of a new phenomena, or relatively, which is these acute incidents that release a whole bunch of debris all at once. So we're seeing that in the southeast with the hurricanes like Maria, Irma, Harvey, that can release a lot of debris. We saw it back to even Katrina and Rita in 2005, can release a lot of debris all at once. So we also work with that kind of more in a response capacity beyond the everyday debris as well.
Goodness, what it's so broad, and I imagine working too, because we are, and as many of us are aware of that subduction zone out there.
Indeed.
So I imagine NOAA is somehow keeping us aware of things in that area too.
Yes, absolutely. Actually, so we've, as response has become more of our mission, we've also engaged with a lot of those exercises and drills that happen around the potential subduction and quake. We're up in Seattle area. There's another fault. So different earthquake or different threats that might release a whole bunch of debris. And we recognize, first of all, life and limb, get people safe. That debris is going to be down the list of priorities, and we're on board with that. But by the same token, how can we help communities be more resilient to avoid debris getting in the water, even if it's just a storm? So tying your boat down appropriately, not necessarily having loose trash, which you don't want to have anyway, but especially in a storm event, that can add to the debris problem that already exists. So we try to work with communities to make sure, okay, let's have our priorities straight, but on the list somewhere, hey, here's some things that you can do to reduce what gets into the ocean every day, and even in the event of an incident.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Peter, this is interesting. I'm sorry, we're going to have to take a quick break for a great sponsor, and we're going to be right back visiting with Peter Murphy from NOAA. But do you know one of those do-it-yourself kind of guys? They're always telling you to do it yourself. Well, sometimes that isn't the best solution. You're in luck, whether it's a leaky faucet, a complete bathroom remodel, or maybe replacing that septic system. Do yourself a favor and call Clark's Plumbing. They're professionals. They'll get the job done. Anything, new installations, upgrades, that stopped-up drain, you name it, they can do it. So the next time you hear do it yourself a favor and call 842-5105. That's 842-5105 for the professionals at Clark's Plumbing. And we're back visiting with Peter. You got a fun job, Peter. You enjoy your work, don't you?
I do. Yeah, I feel very fortunate to have this job, and it's a challenging issue, but that makes the days interesting. So I feel fortunate to be able to do it, and it's great. Also, you get to interact with so many different people, as I mentioned, from fishermen to policymakers, NGOs. There's so many people working on the issue in such interesting ways. It's great to be able to interact with them, learn a lot, and then also be able to try to share that knowledge, so build that connection between groups. So sometimes I do some work in Alaska as well, or that's actually my area of focus. So when you find something that maybe from Alaska that can help someone in Oregon, or from Oregon that can help someone in Alaska, it's great to build those connections between communities and organizations.
Well, I think that because when you hear that, and that's true in Tillamook, when we're doing something and you can collaborate with them, well, they have the same problem or the same issue, and our entire coast. I was just meeting with a nice young woman yesterday, and the issues that affect Tillamook, they may not, when it comes to tourism, we're not the same as a Lincoln City or a Cannon Beach, but we have similar issues with infrastructure, et cetera.
Exactly. Yeah, and those finding those common areas, because like as you said, it may not be the exact same, but it's surprising sometimes when you realize, oh wait, like as a direct example, my work in Alaska, we found parallels between Alaska and the North Shore of Australia because of just the remoteness of it. So how far they are from a community. Okay, how do we move this debris we're collecting? How do we move it around? And similarly, with Oregon, you can see different areas, that are more relevant to it because just the topography is different and the organizations. And so there's been great work here. I mean, just to highlight a few, there's been a great project just up the coast working on abandoned derelict vessels. So old boats that people leave off the side. They can be an eyesore, but they can also be an environmental issue. And then also working on prevention. So Oregon Surfrider, they've been a great partner working on preventing debris, so changing behavior so that we're getting less into the ocean in the first place. So there continue to be great partners all over, and especially here in Oregon.
Well, we've got a very active bar here and an active commercial community. And now, when you say 55 different bins placed around the country, I suppose we got a few on our coast right here on the West Coast.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's some in Washington, there's here in Oregon, and I'd have to look at the exact list because I wouldn't want to misquote it. But there's certainly, it's had a strong West Coast presence throughout. And sometimes bins will come online and then there might be, they'll take a few seasons off because they realize, hey, we've really gotten rid of the backlog. So there's kind of some interaction back and forth there. But we found that some of the West Coast fisheries, and they're such great partners throughout. The commercial fishermen, that's some of our most valued partners throughout, both for this program and for their expertise. They know the water, it's their livelihood. And so they often can tell us, hey, there's a lot of, we're seeing a lot of derelict fishing gear here, or here's something you might have not have noticed. And so they're an incredible partner and relationship we really strive to build.
I remember when they were laying it was a transoceanic line, and they had the commercial fishermen out there because they knew the bed.
Absolutely, yeah. Actually, so we had a project around that was associated with that. We were trying to go get derelict fishing gear from the deep ocean, kind of off of Oregon, that we actually, one of our partners with the Oregon Cable Commission. I might not be remembering the name exactly correct, but so because of that, they brought in the fishermen, and then we were able to both do the survey and also figure out where there was some gear. I did that project a number of years ago out of Astoria. It was a great project. And
those fascinate me because to take advantage of the person that really knows the grounds out there, and I bet your people do appreciate that.
No, we do hugely. I think those connections with people who are out there every day and know the ocean, not just they know the charts, they know the maps, but it's not just that spreadsheet knowledge, which I'm a science person, so I like my spreadsheets, but it's more than just that. It's also being out there every day and having an awareness, both fishermen out in the ocean, but also people out on the coast. Sometimes they're the ones who know. They can say, hey, wait a minute, something's different. There's a different type of debris showing up. And that's something that we want to also get, is that direct knowledge from people who are out there a lot.
Peter, someone listening to this conversation might say, well, I am a coast watcher. So how would they share? Yeah,
so there's a few ways. First of all, being what it is nowadays, the website, so marinedebris.noaa.gov, G-O-V. That's our website. There's a few programs there. There's a monitoring program. So actually people can go out, citizen science, and collect data. It takes a little bit of time to spin up on. It's not, it's spreadsheet science, as they say. So it takes a little bit of time to do. But there's also a few apps. There's actually a tracker app where you can report what you see. And it goes into a broad set of data about what people are seeing. So it's the Marine Debris Tracker app. I'm
going to find that. I'll add it to my bird watching app.
You should.
Because I didn't realize that was available, because that sort of thing, you're exactly right. Some of our people living on our coast. Yeah.
Yeah, and they can get out and see things, and also it joins this community of different things, because of different observations, people out there seeing what's coming ashore, and what those changes and trends are, because that can tell us more about what's going on in the world's oceans, and unfortunately what's getting into them.
So, all right, let's get back to, I'm sorry, I got to chatting.
That's okay.
I'm not even talking about Garibaldi, but you're going to be, in fact, we're a little early, so you can make this morning out in Garibaldi, and I'm glad that we did that.
Yeah.
And we're able to get you on for a visit.
Absolutely. So, this morning there's going to be an event there at the Port of Garibaldi, where we're going to be talking with people about the port and the great work that's been doing there, and then continuing on tomorrow to follow it up the life cycle. So, it starts with collecting it at the bin, and then it goes to these facilities with Covanta or Schnitzer to do the recycling or the generation of power. So we're going to be able to follow the debris kind of up the chain as it moves from waste to energy. So it's going to be a great experience.
I'm impressed with this, and now the other thing I'm happy about my Port of Garibaldi, because they're a very active partner in a lot of things. The work that Mike Sandin, our port manager, is done with continuing with the Tiger grants, working on our hopefully the improvements to the South Jetty. They've improved the North Jetty, but we have a dangerous bar.
Yeah, no, and absolutely. These coastal communities with, the ports are such an important element to the livelihood in these communities up and down the coast, all the way from Alaska down to California and out into Hawaii. And so taking care of them takes a lot of work. So our hats are off to those harbor masters and port managers, since they do a lot of work and sometimes unnoticed. So we appreciate them very much, and we try to notice them when we can.
Yeah, and that's back to this project. The captain doesn't need anything else to think about getting tangled up in something coming across that bar.
Absolutely.
You want as clear sailing as possible.
Absolutely, and so that's what we're trying to do is work to leverage and utilize the fishermen and their expertise and what they're doing, so that their retired nets, when they're done with the net, that's something else is that these nets, disposing of them can be expensive, and so we want to try to make sure that they have every incentive to get this into the best waste stream possible. Obviously, a landfill is better than the ocean or on the beach, but even better if it can get recycled or be used to create energy. And so, and also too, we want to make sure that the fishermen, if they pick up a net from someone else, just a net they randomly snag, people lose nets, it happens, that they're not left with a hefty bill to dispose of this thing when they're trying to do a good thing. And so we want to make sure that that's what this Fishing for Energy program is such a great example of, is allowing people and greasing the skids, creating those incentives to make the right and best choice.
Well, and good job, Schnitzer and Kavanagh, for also joining with NOAA on this impressive project.
Yeah, between Schnitzer, Covanta, NOAA, and National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, NIFWF, it's been a great partnership that's been going 10 years now, and we're really grateful to be a part of it and to be able to continue it.
Well, let's see. Did we have something?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and today we're really excited for, specifically, it's a 10th anniversary celebration of Fishing for Energy, and that's today at 10 at the Port of Garibaldi. So we're really excited for that event specifically today.
Well, folks, that is going to be happening at 10 o'clock. So that's if you're within the sound of my voice, you might be able to make it to Garibaldi. But when Peter, I'm really intrigued, because this is not the end of this.
No.
This is a continuing program that
Absolutely.
we're going to have available to these ports.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point in that this is the 10th anniversary of this partnership, and there's been 4 million pounds of debris or of gear collected, but we expect to continue that for years to come, and for more ports and for more pounds. So we're looking forward to that, and really looking for those opportunities for more partnerships, because really at this point, the debris issue isn't something that can go away with the snap of our fingers.
Exactly.
We'd love for it to. I can find another job, but I think that the reality is that we're going to need everybody to work together, both to prevent debris getting in the ocean and also to help remove it once it's already there. So.
Well, and something that NOAA is very good at is educating us on this issue. I appreciate you being able to stop by here this morning, letting people know about the 10 years and about the Fishing for Energy, a project I didn't know about, but I bet obviously a lot of our commercial fishermen knew about it.
Absolutely, and that's something that we find is, it's a great thing in that there's a lot of great work going on, and sometimes it's only the people who are doing it. A lot of these are kind of unsung heroes.
Exactly.
They're people who know what they're doing, and we want to recognize them where we can, but also take the opportunity to expand that group whenever we can and let people know what the great work that's been going on.
Well, I'm excited that we're going to be letting people know about it. And people, let's see. Hey, I got to let you know a few other things also. We got a few birthdays today. Jerry Dillon, happy birthday, Jerry, and Sharon Stafford, hey, Sharon, and Michelle Holler. And let's see, what else we got going on? Senior meals, noon every weekday at the Kiwanda Community Center in Pacific City, the Tillamook Senior Center on 4th and Stillwell, as well as Tuesdays and Thursdays at the Nehalem Bay Methodist Church. And let's see, what do we got coming up this weekend? Kite and Art Festival, Friday through Sunday in Rockaway Beach. Friday from 5 to 9, it's the Second on Second. That's specials and sales throughout downtown Tillamook, but there's going to be live music, games, and vendor booths on 2nd Street. Saturday evening from 6 to 8 is the monthly open mic and supper at Fairview Grange. Share your talent and enjoy the talent of others in this fun community event. Dinner by donation that's going to be emceed by our Eric Sappington. And all-you-can-ride coupons are still $25 through next Tuesday, and then they're going to be $35. You can find them at Columbia Bank in Manzanita and Tillamook, Godfrey's General Store in Garibaldi, Tillamook Pharmacy, Oregon Coast Bank in Pacific City only, TLC, a division of Fiber Federal Credit Union in Tillamook, and the Fairgrounds office. And the county fair begins a week from tomorrow. And tomorrow, we're going to have Discover the Bays. Tillamook Estuaries Partnership and the Pioneer Museum will be visiting us. It's the 25th anniversary of Tillamook Bay being designated a bay of national significance. The TEP's collaborating with the museum on an exhibit highlighting our estuaries. Discover the Bounty of the Bays. It's going to be open Saturday and runs through September 28th. Peter, thank you again for stopping by.
Thank you. It was great to speak with you this morning.
Thank you. And thank you, Tillamook.